Doctor Strange, master of the mystic arts.
This is Phil Moran's podcast. It's a superhero podcast. We've been following, as you may have known if you've been following us, superhero films as they've been coming out this year. And tonight's film is Doctor Strange. I'm joined by Scott Adair.
Hello.
And Richard Drumm.
Good eve.
And I'm Paul Farren. And I'd like to open the floor to Richard, who...
Oh, yes.
The only person who's seen it in 2D.
And I regret my decision. I think there was definitely moments where the mirror dimension stuff, that looked like it was designed for 3D and IMAX, and I wish I'd seen it that way now. It looked like it was the right kind of 3D effect, whereby it wasn't going to be in your face, but it was sort of a subtle use of the frame that would actually, work. But alas, so, regale me how good it was, both of you.
Well, Scott, you've seen it in 3D, but you haven't seen it in 2D.
I've seen it in 3D IMAX, actually. I saw it last night, so it's all pretty fresh in the memory. I think, like, what the director came out and said, it was better to see it in 3D or 3D IMAX, pretty much on the basis of the color palette and the sort of interdimensional kind of scene setups, if you know what I mean. The mirror dimension I thought was brilliant in IMAX. Everything was just so vivid. When he goes and travels through the multiverse, when he first kind of is introduced to that world.
I think that was my favourite sequence, was when he gets...
so trippy.
And so faithful to some of the Steve Ditko madness from the 1960s.
Sort of vision for that, yeah.
Because that first trailer was just sort of Inception. It was all just grey and glass, and then like, this is not Doctor Strange. That was Doctor Strange. Like, this is the weird hypercolour, yeah.
And that was only that scene. And just to recap the plot, Doctor Strange,
and spoilers, by the way,
vain doctor surgeon type who only will do it for his own kind of career motivations.
He's Tony Stark, but a doctor, basically.
Yeah. Breaks up his hands in a car crash. Goes seeking for the cure. Goes to... Anyone can remember the name of the place?
There's a Midge in there somewhere. Tara Midge or...
Taramesh.
No, it wasn't Taramesh.
Taramush. Okay, goes to India.
Tamaramaj, I think that's what it's called.
Very good.
It's
not so fresh in the memory.
Anyone else know any better? Let us know. And of course ends up on a classic kind of mentor-pupil journey. Mm-hmm. Would you say it didn't do anything different with that? It's
probably my biggest complaint about the movie is that it feels like a bog standard kind of Phase 1 Marvel movie. It hits all the same points. There's nothing that groundbreaking about it. Like, it was fun, but it didn't do anything amazingly, astoundingly original.
Well, it did one interesting thing in that it was trying to get the plot and the kind of origin story running at the same pace. So in structurally unusual for a film like this, the big moment for Strange to have to face into a journey, as in like who he is as Strange, happened very late in the film.
That's true.
Which was quite odd, I thought. And I did think the Inception thing was fine to a point, but it got a bit heavy on that. It was like, let's do Inception up to 11.
I really enjoyed that sequence though. Like, it was just a ridiculous chase scene. Like, that's the stuff that did make it stand out. Like the trippy bit with the multiverse, the weird chase scene. Those bits all made it stand out, and the resolution via not a giant battle with a faceless army. That was nice. Just beating someone with smarts for once rather than
a Groundhog Day apocalypse.
Yeah, that was clever.
It
wasn't
nice.
that interesting, but it was clever.
Again, it just felt like a Doctor Who moment.
Oh, definitely, absolutely Doctor Who moment. Yeah, which isn't the worst thing in the world. Like.
So a lot of criticism from Asians and people who don't like girls taking boys' roles. Any comments on that, lads?
I'll let you go first.
I think Tilda Swinton's great, and she was great in this. That's all I have to say on that.
Yeah, she didn't even have to do much. I felt these things have been jazzed up in the comic books anyway, and they've been changed over the years. I haven't really caught up on the new variations. I'm a bit of an old school Gene Colan and Steve Ditko, where it's at. Some of the 70s. What's interesting as well, there's no mention that it was quite a lot of Satanism and that kind of running through the 70s Doctor Strange, and they managed to avoid that. The psychedelics and that were still kept in there, I thought. But
I was thinking there'd be a Mephisto appearance, all right. No Mephisto. That was disappointing.
They're saving him.
Hopefully.
I mean,
Supposed
there
to
was
be a nightmare
one
appearance,
villain
so-
referenced and he didn't turn up. I think there was at least one villain. Came across some Easter eggs that were put online on YouTube. Check it out if everybody 13 Easter eggs.
Enlighten us, come on, name the name.
I can't remember that. I can never remember the names of these villains. Anything over 3 syllables and I'm gone, you know. And with a Z or a Y in it, I just can't remember it. But what my point was that it's Strange has been changed so much. Changing the sex of Tilda Swinton didn't matter. It added a bit more mystique to the whole thing as well. Because, in fact, Tilda Swinton being Tilda Swinton, don't forget, this is the woman who was Orlando. I don't know if anyone remembers Orlando, based on a Virginia Woolf book about a individual who changes sex from generation to generation and is immortal. It was a direct nod to that, though no one has actually said it.
Hadn't even thought of that. Totally.
Tilda Swinton's quite a sexless character. She's a very sexless character, and she's just about what she is. I think, for me, the most interesting aspect of it was fudging the line of good versus bad. I liked that. Spoiler alert, our old one, our ancient one, should I say, dabbles in the more arcane arts in order to keep things in order. And there's a question from one of her side pupils, Mordo, who's much more of a villain from the start in the comic books back in the day. He doesn't like this playing with the order. So there's an interesting kind of moral ambiguity about breaking the rules to keep everything in place, which Strange does at the end.
That's what kind of sets Mordo over the edge, because he'd already felt betrayed by the Ancient One, because he didn't know that she was sort of siphoning off energy from the dark dimension to keep herself immortal. And he's very pure in that sense, where once he felt like he was betrayed, and then he saw Doctor Strange do it for himself when he used the Eye of Agamotto to change back time and change back the events and save lives by doing that. He's perverting the natural law of the way that things should be.
Well, it's got to be one of the more profound comments in a Marvel comic film in ages. I mean, it's basically kind of kicking fundamentalism and fundamentalist ideas, and Mordo is the one who represents that. He's a rigid little bugger of good versus bad, and doesn't understand that there's a bit of grey out there. Whereas, as you say, the Ancient One understands
there is a
that.
grey area. You have to make sacrifices in order for the greater good, and I think that's what the Ancient One was doing. And she obviously saw herself as the strongest person and the only person that could protect sort of the realm, if you know what I mean. And then sort of the controversy came where Doctor Strange figured it out, figured out the spells after he used the Time Stone in Eye of Agamotto. I feel like again, I'm jumping ahead of myself here.
No, that's so fine. I think it's a good point to make. Is that it's Strange's arrogance what makes him the right person for to take over from the Ancient One, as it were.
But he actually, by the end of the movie, he hasn't officially taken over. He's only just become the master of the New York Sanctum.
Well, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
We know he's
on the way, because there is no sort. Like, that's what they were saying. The world is there for the taking, as there's no Sorcerer Supreme. But everyone knows that Doctor Strange becomes the Sorcerer Supreme.
There was a ton of setup, though. I suppose a satisfying enough conclusion in terms of that part of the story. But it did, when I saw it initially, feel like, okay, it's a really expensive TV episode. It's setting up so much. Again, don't forget this disease goes back to...
It's setting up a lot more movies. It's setting up a whole different kind of genre to the Marvel Universe, I think, as well. So that you've got Thanos coming.
Is this the proper first Phase 4 movie?
No. This is still Phase...
We're still in Phase 3, but I think the next one is Phase 4, isn't it?
No, because Thor is still part of Phase 3. Like, the Infinity Wars will kick off Phase 4.
Civil War was the first Phase 3, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So
Phase 3 runs for 2 years.
6 more of these to go, probably.
Yeah, so there's Guardians of the Galaxy 2, which is part of Phase 3 as well.
A lot of oohs and ahs in the screening I went to when people saw the big A on the New York skyline.
Yeah, like, I think it's cool because it's the first time I've actually seen it in like... Is it the first time? 'Cause they have it in...
You can see it in Daredevil, can't you? I think.
No, they took it out of Daredevil, but it's in Luke Cage. It wasn't shown, but I think it's the way because the skyline hit it, because he's obviously in Hell's Kitchen, and that's to...
miles down the road.
I'm convinced I saw it in Daredevil, but all right.
So north, east... No, north,
I
west,
thought
east.
it was mentioned as being in the Daredevil universe because...
Oh, this is a universe, but I think the actual tower was in a shot at one point.
I think it's because, he's the way I've been to New York a couple of times. I'm trying to figure out my geography and my directions. But Hell's Kitchen is on the west side of Manhattan, and that's where the Midtown skyline is. But the Avengers Tower is set above Grand Central Station, and that is on the other side. So that's on the other side of Midtown. So all those skyscrapers where Times Square would be obstructing that. And I think that's kind of what they're going for. But in Luke Cage, you can directly see it in like the first episode. I thought that was kind of cool. I think it's just the perspective of where it's been filmed is showing, where the tower is.
So pyrotechnics of Doctor Strange, you were all pretty happy with it.
Yes and no. Like, I think the effects were fine, but if you're going to bring in magic, it was a bit bland. Like, it was
They've already brought in magic. That's the thing.
But like, even Scarlet Witch's stuff was better than this because it was just everyone has a shield, everyone has a whip, and everyone has a weird sort of shadow dagger thing. But there was no like proper weird old school magic. There's like
that's the thing. Like, that was all forbidden because of the ancient one, and now the fact
is that the logic of it now?
Well, I think because all those books have now been, no one owns those books.
Yeah.
All those spells are now able to be,
For which
taken. Well, the way the Scarlet Witch, she conjures magic just from her hands and her fingers, so she can create whatever she wants and do whatever she wants. But the sorcerers, they're going off a code, so there's only a limited amount of magic and a limited amount of spells that they can actually use. And I think now, because the Ancient One, she had her books, and that was her private collection from the library. And Wong was like, that's her private collection, that no one touches that. And then obviously Strange then takes the book, uses the Eye of Agamotto, which has the Time Stone, which is the Infinity Gem, in it, and then in that realizes that he can turn back time. That's the stuff that the Ancient One wanted to avoid.
And for all you would-be wizards and witches, the Book of Cagliostro does exist.
Yeah, it does. But that's the thing. There's more than one book, so there's more spells.
Would have been nice to see one person just, I don't know, conjure a giant snake or make someone fall into a giant fire pit or just something weird and wacky instead of just everyone has knives and whips. Like,
well, they were like very extravagant laser swords at times, with
yeah,
their
they were
big
cool.
shields.
I like that.
At least it beat Harry Potter in terms of waving goddamn sticks at people and pretending you're having a gunfight.
I don't know how the guys they must do a lot of wizard training in order to figure out how to do that with their hands. Because I was doing it after I got out of the cinema last night, and then I was doing it with my girlfriend, and I was like, does this look right? And she's like, no, you look like an idiot. And I'm trying to conjure the Eye of Agamotto, and I was like, I forgot how it was, and she's like, would you stop embarrassing yourself? We're in public, and I'm like,
just
right
outside the cinema. Yeah,
right outside the cinema, waiting on a taxi.
I admire that spontaneity myself. Now
I'm just
you give us all a bad name.
I'm one of those people. I don't care what other people think.
Evidently.
I have fun,
So even the Hamir character, the one they did a little gag where he thinks Hamir is it Hamir
Master Hamir, I think,
and Strange thinks that he's the ancient one,
Oh,
the guy with one arm or one hand, should I say? Another little Easter egg reference to a character who I think in the original comic was the father of Wong.
Yeah, Master Hamir.
So, but back to this critique of use of Asians in it, I think that totally missed the point of what the hell the thing was about. At least Wong wasn't his butler in this.
That was a nice change. Yeah.
I see. I read a lot about this because I didn't want to come off as uneducated on that subject. But at the end of the day, when you talk about it, it's always a sensitive subject. And going back to the actual director's comment is that there was no way you were going to win with that character. Mainly because you have to think about the box office market. You were gonna, the Ancient One was originally from Tibet, and it was an old man as well. So I don't really mind the change in sex for the character. Because the Ancient One isn't really a man or a woman. She's an ancient kind of, I don't even know, asexual or something
beyond
like that.
sexual.
Beyond sort of sexual comprehension or something like that. Even if you say that sounds really weird.
Orlando.
Yeah, but they were saying that because of the whole Tibet thing and the fact that China doesn't recognize Tibet, that if they went and they did that, they were going to lose that entire market. They were going to offend 1 billion people.
Yeah, they would have. It's so dodgy politically, though, what they did.
Not 1 billion people.
It was. It's dodgy, but you had to have the lesser of, the lesser evil, essentially.
It wasn't the lesser evil, it's the capitalist.
Yeah.
The pro-capitalist.
Well, you see, don't forget, it's not about offending people, it's about offending potential cinema goers.
Yeah.
And China, we won't get into this in a big way, but it's a huge market now, and they think about that market from the very start when they're doing these
Of course,
movies.
because that's how Transformers still keeps getting made, because
I think
the Chinese market lap it up. Like.
and the Chinese market saved that awful Warcraft movie as well from being a total disaster.
And they're talking about sequels for that as well. Yeah,
Still haven't seen it.
Oh yeah, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is like that's gone. That's finito.
Really?
They're not making the third one.
I didn't see the second one now.
God. But the fact is, like, a lot of people were saying that the ancient one in the original comics. Now, I was never I was never really big into Doctor Strange when I was.
Let's all admit this now. We're not big Doctor Strange fans.
I know.
No, I said I liked the early Ditkos and Colons, but then I kind of stopped off. And I really like them for the artwork more than the stories. But I have to say, one thing that has me marked is Doctor Strange as a character in the Marvel Universe is probably one of the most tortured souls ever. Peter Parker doesn't have it half as hard as Doctor Strange does when it comes to the burden he has to deal with and the amount of women he's lost over the years. Okay, so hands down, Doctor Strange wins that one. But yeah, I love those early. Gene Colan did an awful lot for it in the 70s. And as I said, got into a lot of heavy magic stuff. I mean, don't forget, the 70s was big into Satanism, and it was in the culture. I think Charlie Manson inadvertently had a big effect on that. Don't forget now. Sorry, I'm trying to remember the date. Strange was created in 1966, I think, wasn't it?
I couldn't tell you.
So just for people who don't know, Ditko also created Spider-Man, and there's an argument, did Stanley just jump in there, or did he actually help? But Strange, funny enough, I was a bit surprised by the credits, because Stanley gets a credit. And he's gone down and officially is saying that it was Ditko's idea. He helped evolve it, but it came fully from Ditko.
You can always say that when you talk over ideas, you get like some sort of the amount of executive producers on movies just because they had an input or because they put a few bucks into the film.
It's my favorite new one is consulting producer.
But that's the thing, Stanley, I think, consulted on how they were going to create that character and what stories they were going to do. So essentially, when you think about it,
but it's like the way Gene Roddenberry consulted on Star Trek, but no one listened to a word he said.
Nor the whole
After
Bob
the
Kane,
first one.
Bill Finger thing.
But what I was going to say was that with that sort of Chinese market, that the Ancient One was originally very stereotypically racist.
It was a Fu Manchu thing. Yeah,
it was very sort of like.
Well, the opposite of Fu Manchu now. In fairness, Fu Manchu kind of wants to kill all the Occidentals.
But what was that movie with the guy who? This is like one of the whitewashing things. Was like the white actor played the Asian sort of landlord, and he did the eyes. And he used to shout from.
Oh, are you talking about Breakfast at Tiffany's?
I think so. Yes,
yeah.
yes, exactly.
Well, that's another thing that's interesting is like Marvel is rife with Fu Manchu stereotypes in the 60s and the 70s. There's not just what's the guy from Iron Man called again? You've got the Mandarin, and you've got the Yellow Claw, and you've got they're kind of like, it's a queue there
because
they're not hard to find.
That sense of casual racism wasn't frowned upon as much as it is today,
But things change, and we all know now China's a lovely place, and they don't really want to kill all the white people. So yeah, let's change these things. That's why we have Ben Kingsley doing the Mandarin instead.
And Tilda Swinton, I think she did an absolute fantastic job playing that role.
And don't forget, Mordo was Asian as well in the original.
Mordo was also white.
Yeah.
So yeah, like there's a lot of sort of progressiveness in comics. Everyone complains in comics now because Thor is now a woman, and the original Thor is now called Odin's son, and he's lost his hand. He doesn't use the hammer anymore, and like there's a lot of sort of changes in sexual role reversals. And
Marvel's gone crazy at the moment as well, isn't it? I mean, there's so many.
Crazy,
it's dealing with loads of different Earths now.
You've
got Black Spider-Man, White Spider-Man.
There's a lot of changes there's a lot of changes in it, and a lot of diverse action taken. And Spider-Woman, Miles Morales Spider-Man, Peter Parker Spider-Man. There's actually a Spider-Verse, so there's just different sort of races in Spider. With that,
can't keep up.
But there will always be someone who will be like, why did they have to make it a woman, or why did they have to make him black? And you're like, just fucking get over it, man. Like,
there's decades and decades of stories to the one that you like. So why can't there be?
See, but everyone seems to forget mostly is that there's still commerce involved in this. They want to sell comics to people, and I'm all for diversity. I'm all for diversity.
Make more sense.
I never look at it in terms of like diversity. like the idea of characters being changed, and it doesn't matter if the color of their skin or their sex. Like,
I agree.
I think it's just if you put the right actor in the right role, it'll and they gel and it comes across on screen. I think like everyone wants to say something. You know, everyone has to have their say in regards to like whitewashing in movies, and this is like in like months and months before the movie's even released. And I'm one of those people where I try to not have an opinion because I'm just excited in general. But then if I tell people I'm really excited, they're like, "Oh, how could you be excited for that?" They've put a white woman in an Asian man's role, and I'm like, you know what, fuck you. I was like, I don't give a shit. Like, I was like, it's Tilda Swinton. I was like, wait and see when the movie comes out. It's gonna be great. Like,
generate some great pub rows though. Usually, pub rows used to be about politics.
It's about comic books.
That's actually quite true. Probably in a very sad kind of way. Yeah, I thought
You
that
see a lot of-
smashed on the bar.
I was at New York Comic Con and I went to an after party like on one.
Didn't
of
you
the
get to
nights.
meet Stan Lee?
I got to meet Stan Lee. Yeah,
Is he looking good, Nick?
he was kind of like
He was wheeled out in an oxygen
I
tent.
don't want to say anything bad about him because like I grew up like being like, oh, Stan Lee, co-created Spider-Man. He's Stan the man. Like he's a legend in the industry. And then when I got like, I'll tell you the story of how I got to meet him. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I showed up at Comic-Con. Like I was there, sort of half business, half work. Half work, half vacation. I was there with my girlfriend. We went to a meeting with the Diamond Comics distributor. That was a work thing. And then afterwards, we got our breakfast and we went on the shop floor. And the convention had just opened, and there was a big queue at the Marvel booth. And I was like, "What the hell is this queue about?" And so I queue up, and I was like, does anyone know what this is for? And they're like, "Oh, it's a signing. No one knows what it is." And next thing you know, people were like, "It's Stan Lee. Gotta meet Stan Lee. There's 50 tickets. There's 50 tickets." And I was like, I'm at least like 100 people behind in this line. So we're queuing up, and I was like, all right, the line's going pretty quickly because you have to go and you just put your hand in this bag at the Marvel table, and you pick out a card. It'll say winner or loser. So we wait 20 minutes, and the more time it goes on, they're like, 15 tickets left, 8 tickets left, and we're like 5 people in the line. He's like 2 tickets left, and I'm like, oh my god, this is not gonna happen. Like
Willy Wonka moment.
It was crazy. And then when it came to 2 tickets left, I was like, the other guy who went before me, he didn't win, and there was 2 tickets left. There's still like 100 people behind us. So there's me and there's my girlfriend Alva, and we're like, right, come on now. There's 2 of us here. We have to win one. So she went first. She got the loser one, and I was like, right, it's up to me now. I got it, and I got the winner. And I lost my shit. Like I was jumping around the shop floor like a madman. Like I flung my ticket away by accident. I had to like dive on it before someone took it off me. But they were like, okay, it's only you, and you can only get one thing signed. And I was like, can I not bring her? Can we not get any photos? And they're like, no, it's just comic book on the table and get signed. He's a very busy man. And I was like, all right, okay. I was like, right. All his photo ops were sold out, and so we went to his collectibles table trying to find something that we could get signed. And then they actually had a skateboard, and I collect like skateboard decks. I don't skate, but I collect the skateboard decks, depending on the artist.
So it was just a deck, was it?
But it was a skateboard deck, and it was like 1 out of 25, but it was the very last one, and it was like glow in the dark. It was $250, but it was like if you buy that skate deck, you get it signed by Stan Lee, and you get a selfie with him. So we were looking at each other, being like, he's sold out. This is his last New York Comic Con. This is one of his last ever conventions before he retires. We gotta buy this.
That's a generous word to use.
So we're looking at ourselves, and we're like, he's probably gonna die soon. I was like, well, this is our only chance to probably meet him. And I was like, it's very morbid to think that, but I'm like, the dude's just turned 93. Like,
well, when they announced was the
I
last
love
one,
the fact that he's still out there,
still going. Like,
he loves the
By the way,
attention.
but he's recorded like the next 4 cameos, hasn't he? The next, that's the next 5 years.
He's done all of them. He's done
out.
Guardians of the Galaxy. He's done Thor. He's done whatever one's been. He's done his Logan one.
Oh yeah.
But I bought the skateboard, and they were like, come back at like 6 o'clock, and you can meet Stan Lee. You get a photograph, and you get a skateboard signed. And I was like, oh, okay, we'll come back. We were looking at each other, like, I can't believe we just spent $250 on a skate deck, but it was like $120 to get.
You do realise once it's signed, it's worth well more.
Oh, 100%. But
You won't sell it, though.
I will never sell that thing. Like,
No, but your grandchildren will.
right, yeah, when I'm long dead. But the thing is, we bought it together, but to meet Stanley, it was $110, $120 each. So they were like, the both of you can get in the photograph, and we're like, all right, this is actually a bit of a bargain then. So we came back after the day on the con. We were all wrecked. We were going to an ice hockey game, so we were rushed down to meet him at the photographing. And area. And I swear to God, when he brought us out behind the curtain, I thought it was like a wax model. I just didn't think it was him until he moved, because he didn't move until we put, like, the guy who brought us down.
He works on sunlight, apparently.
No, he put the skate deck on his lap, and then he just kind of looked up and he realized, and he kind of like jolted himself awake or something. Jesus. Like, I think he rests between photographs. It was so strange.
He's like the granddad in Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
What did he say to you?
But he was like, "Oh, you don't expect me to do any tricks on this?" And I was like, "Oh my God, Stanley's talking to me." I was sweating profusely. It was ridiculous. I was so tired because we'd been up since 6 a.m. that day, and it was like 7 at that time. I felt like I was going to burst into tears. I was like, "Oh, it's an honor to meet you, sir." And calling him sir. I was like, "I work at a comic book store because of you." And it was just such a, like, I've never.
It's your fault.
I was just like, it's an absolute pleasure. I kind of gathered myself before getting the photograph. I brushed myself down. But you weren't allowed to touch him. But he was chatting away.
Well, I meet you guys every couple of months. I resist touching you too.
But he has like an entire team like dedicated to making sure no one touches him. Like, you can stand beside him.
I understand.
You can't put your hands on him. And I tried to like shake his hand. I didn't know what I was doing. I just put my hand out, and they were like, I saw a person from across the room being like, crossing her neck. She was like, "Don't do that."
Yeah. And
I was like, "Oh shit, okay." But like, we were just like, the reason why we did it, we're like, he's an old man. I was like, he's a legend in this industry. I was like, this is our only opportunity. And when we got to do it, I was just like, oh my God. I was like, I can't wait to see Doctor Strange. And he was like, "Oh, you're gonna like the cameo." And I was like, oh my God. I was like, "Can you tell me anything?" And he's like, "No." I was just freaking out.
I have to say, it is one of the more amusing Stanley cameos.
All right.
We won't even spoil that one. We'll leave it.
I want to talk about you.
Okay, you spoil it. I have to say, just that the podcast has been worth it just to hear about you meeting Stanley now. I think it's been the highlight of the night so far.
I'm such an embarrassing, self-deprecating person in those situations, because I always manage to make an idiot out of myself. Like, I'm a 26-year-old guy, and I'm like I'm a senior position in my job. Like, I run a comic book store. I get to go and travel and run conventions and stuff like that. And then when I meet like one of my heroes, I turn into a 5-year-old child, blubbering, over him. I'm just like, "I love Spider-Man." But I met him twice that day. Like, I got this. I went up in the queue and I got my Spider-Man sign. I was like, "I'll see you in an hour." And he was just, the guy was like, "Don't talk to him." But he has this big like Samoan bodyguard, and it's like that he's you don't want to go near him because he'll fuck you up.
Has he got magic powers?
No, he just has muscles.
That's magic powers to me.
Pretty much, yeah, like physical muscle powers, But I love telling people the story, because they always just they're like, "You can't hold it together."
When are we going to see a photo of this skate deck?
I've got it.
So we're going to see a photo of the skate deck. You guys can't see this because it's a podcast, but I'll
see
see if I can get
Twitter, probably.
Steve Galvin to put up a picture.
Yeah, like I'll send a photo.
Definitely, we have to see this. And did he fill the whole skateboard with this signature?
No, I'll tell you a funny thing. He signed it wrong the first time.
He forgot his name.
He signed it upside down. And then I was
That's allowed.
I was like, I was going to hang this up vertical. And they made him sign it again. He was like, "Oh, okay."
You did not.
Oh, yeah, we made him sign it again. So my skateboard is now
So if you
signed.
cut it evenly down the middle on the edge, you'd have two stands.
Well, if I broke the skateboard in half, like, I could probably sell the signature. All right. I also paid another $40 to get a certificate of authenticity. So there is the photo with the main signature.
Oh, so yeah, I get you.
Then there's the upside down.
Now I kind of see the reason behind the deck, Richard. It's a Stan Lee skateboard. That makes even more sense. I thought you picked up some random skateboard.
No, it's from Stanley Collectibles. Like, he has his own website.
That's a nice signature he has.
I
was reading a kind of very bitchy interview with Jack Kirby talking about Stanley, and it's quite funny. But I'm not going to get into that, who did what and all that crap. But he does say also I read then later was another thing Stanley going about. He loved putting his name on things. Even though it weren't his books, it was library books all over some part of the world, and they've got Stan Lee written all over them. So if you can find that library, you could have something in your hands. Here, Rich, have a look. It's beautiful. Absolutely, yeah. I can see.
It was definitely worth the money.
You're going to get a frame for that now.
No, I've actually bought it. There's a mount you can screw into your wall, so you can hang the skate deck vertically. I just want to have it hanging on my wall. I think it'll be really cool.
We won't tell anyone where you live, because I could see fanboy burglars coming around.
The funny thing is, like, I had this. After the convention ended, I had to carry the damn thing to Madison Square Garden, and then I went to an ice hockey game. I couldn't put it down. I had to hold it for the entire night. after the ice hockey game, we were invited to this after party, like the unofficial Marvel after party. It's where a bunch of people from the Marvel offices go and they drink. It's called, in a bar in New York called McHale's. And a lot of people who I know from Ireland, like artists like Declan Shalvey and a couple of guys like Kieran Marcantonio I work with. He does a podcast called The Irish Podcast. He's also a writer. And so they were all going, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to meet with these guys. Stephen Mooney was there. He does Half Past Danger with IDW Comics. I'm plugging all these guys.
That's
right now.
okay. Yeah, work away.
But like I went and I met them all, and we were at the table, and I was like carrying this deck, and they're like, "Is that a Stan Lee skateboard?" And I was like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Is that signed?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Don't put that down. Just carry that all night." And I was like, "All right, but I really don't want to carry it. I want to drink beer." And then we'd been on our feet since 6 a.m. and we were in that bar until like maybe midnight. And then everyone was going strong. Like they all the artists and the writers and stuff. Like they were all mingling and networking and stuff with each other. And
It must have been a very stressful flight across the Atlantic back home, knowing that is your
I didn't have to
deck
put it
safe?
I didn't have to put it underneath. I managed to take it on with me.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Oh, that was
They
pretty
didn't
good.
charge me.
And did it get signed on a good indelible marker now?
Yeah, like we made sure it was dry. Like if anything,
You tried to rub it off first, and then
Yeah, well, I actually put a piece of plastic around the signature, so if
That's smart,
I
yeah,
had
okay.
it attached
Yeah.
into my bag, so it wasn't rubbing off anything. So I had to really take care of it.
I hope we are all enjoying this Doctor Strange podcast.
Okay, right. Let's get off. Back to
No,
topic.
I'm actually that's chuffed. That was a wonderful kind of break. That's the most interesting thing we've talked about so far.
That's a
The only time I ever had a fanboy moment like that was a million years ago when I met Will Eisner, whom most people won't know, who's a great comic book artist, and Frank Miller
animator and cartoonist.
destroyed an adaptation of his very famous character called Spirit.
Yeah.
And mine's a bit more modest. It was just a number one edition of a reprint of the
Still
Spirit.
got one as well.
But he wrote from Will to Paul, so I'm happy.
That's cool.
Nice.
I really wanted to get on my Spider-Man 121 from Stan Lee to Scott, but he just wrote his name on it because the guy had been signing since.
You
10
did
o'clock.
well. You did well.
I did very well that day. Like I got an iconic Death of Gwen Stacy comic book signed by Stan Lee, and I got a skate deck signed by Stan Lee.
Original copy.
Yeah, I bought it for I think $170.
Okay, wow.
It's the one I think it was 122 I got, actually, not 121. It's the one after Gwen Stacy dies, but she's dead on the cover, and Spider-Man's holding her, and the Green Goblin's flying overhead, and he's like, Spider-Man shouting at the Green Goblin, being like, "You killed the only woman I ever."
Is that on
loved."
top of the tram?
On top of the bridge.
Yeah.
So
I know the picture here.
like I'll post a photo of that as well. But yeah, the Doctor Strange is just all about Stan Lee. Not really. Yeah, like it just I did very well. I even thinking about it, like it doesn't feel real.
Well, no one's going to think you're doing any work when you go abroad now, so you should calm down on all this.
But that's a good thing. Like I just got back from a convention in London, and everyone was asking me about it as well. And I was like, I just love telling the story because everyone's like real jealous. And I was like, I haven't washed myself since.
Are you going to put the skateboard up on Forbidden Planet so people can have a look at it, or is
Not a
it too
chance,
risky?
no.
Yeah, okay, I think you're right.
It's gonna stay at home.
Well, then we have a little bit more chat about Doctor Strange before we leave our good podcast.
We don't have to
people
if
who
no one
listen.
else wants to, but no.
Well,
we
I
should,
have
we
to
should.
put out a mention to Benedict Wong. I really enjoyed him in the film. I thought Benedict Wong played Wong, by the way, everybody. You can't buy that kind of
Racist.
publicity.
Well,
I like that actor. I think he's really nice. I don't know much of his stuff. I saw him in a terrible Black Mirror episode.
You didn't like the Bees episode? Oh, that was great.
Well, I liked it, but not for the reasons you were supposed to. It
Okay.
was fucking hilarious.
Oh, it was great. Yeah, it was delightful.
But anyway, we won't talk about that.
No.
Yeah, I think he was nice in that role.
He was more self-sustaining, I think.
Yeah.
In the comic, like he was more like the butler, but he could fight though. That's the thing.
And he was also half the size.
Yeah, but he couldn't use magic. But in this one, he can fight and he can use magic. Although he didn't get much action in the movie.
Wong character does have a bit of an evolution through the comics. So they say the original '60s version, he is the kind of manservant character, and that's it.
But he's like, I think that he's not the servant. He just serves Doctor Strange. I think that's it. He protects him. He's his loyal, trusted sort of.
Yeah.
He's his Alfred, but. Like nowadays, Alfred isn't really the butler to Batman.
Alfred has guns and flies drones.
Yeah, well, like in the movies and in the Telltale series, he's there to look after Batman. Like his job is to watch him while he's out being Batman. But I think that these sort of, again, I'm using my fingers here, manservant characters are now evolving as well with that whole change in diversity, that whole shift.
What was the highlight of the film for you?
I really enjoyed that chase sequence. Actually, no, the cape. The cape was the highlight.
The cape
I did
was-
not think the cape would be the breakout character and the best bit of comedy in the whole movie. That was very surprising.
That's
and
very
weird.
true. That was that reminded me of Mickey Mouse and the
Fantasia.
broomstick in Fantasia,
Yeah.
and that was a very funny slapstick run going on.
It does raise some questions, though. Is that cape sentient? Is locking it in a cage a violation of its human rights? Like, what's going on there?
It seemed to sort of didn't do anything while it was in that.
Well, was it not
Cabinet?
part of the relic kind of
It
mythology
was,
they
but
created that it has certain magic? What's the name of it again? There was a name of it.
Oh,
the
the
cape of
thing of the living tribunal.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
and
The
it
staff.
shows you, Doctor Strange. Yeah, poor Mordo. I mean, he has to be one of the duller villains now to come along.
Wait, but Mordo
can
wasn't the
see him,
villain, though.
No, but he's being involved. We
Yeah,
know.
yeah,
Come
he'll
on.
be great in the
Did
next
you guys stay to the very, very end?
Oh, yeah,
of
Obviously,
course.
So you saw what happens at the very end. But back to Mags. I still think Mags was highly underused and not the best of motivations or explanations for himself in terms of what he wanted.
He was underused, but I think that was the better one. I think that was one of the better
Overexplained.
motivations. Well,
They
it
cut
made
out his
sense
backstory
though.
as
Like
well.
he made sense that he wanted to stop death. Like, that made more sense than most of the last few villains did.
I think like it's just 5 minutes
And he sold
discussion
it.
to see that's not a very good idea, you know.
They cut out his backstory, like where he had lost his wife and child. I think it was like they cut that all out, so there was like that.
You didn't need to.
Was
see
that in
though.
a script or in
Explain.
the
They-
comic?
I think it was in the script, but they took away that motivation for what he was doing. Like he was just a disposable bad guy at that point. Where
Yeah, but there was so much we were being told and not really feeling. I think that was one of the issues. And he wasn't, as you say, he was a bad guy with a point.
you had to stick a bit of emotion in there.
I
you know?
also enjoyed the fact that the world was saved and nobody knew about it.
Yeah, that was nice. No cities got leveled. No fascist armies got involved.
But on the note of effects, when their big monster man turns up at the end, whose name I can't remember because
Dormammu.
Yep, that what they said. I wasn't that phased by that effect. It felt very. It reminded me of Lawnmower Man. It's shocking
It
thing
looked
to
a
say.
bit cheesy. It did.
It was, but I looked at it in 2D again there on Friday, and he's just sort of a wave idea. The idea that he's a kind of
'Cause that's not his physical
a wave of energy, yeah. And it's a pity. I don't know. It nearly worked, but it didn't.
But in that dark dimension, there's no physical being. He is the dark dimension, if you know what I mean. He's created that physical face as something to interact with. He has a physical form in the comics when he does come to the Earth realm. He's like a god, sort of fire giant.
Okay.
But you know, it was kind of funny. It's actually Benedict Cumberbatch who voices and did the mocap for.
Did he
right.
voice him? I know he mocap him.
I heard he
did voice
mocapped
him.
him, but the voice. Oh yeah, a mysterious English
They haven't
actor.
announced it
I have a
yet.
feeling.
Yeah, when I saw his mysterious English actor, I was like, all right. But then the director said it was him.
Oh, okay.
I did my research. I wanted to make
So
sure.
he has a crown of the only guy play a bad guy and a good guy,
But
in the same film.
there was this whole sort
Same
of
scene.
the conspiracy now is like because Doctor Strange manipulated time. Is Dormammu
the
Doctor
future,
Strange in the
yeah.
future? Has he become Dormammu? And I was like, all right, I don't see it going that far
that's
and becoming
head
that.
painful.
Yeah,
But that's kind of what happened in the pre-Secret Wars thing, though, because he became the head of the Black Priest, but the Black Priests were attacking them before they knew who
Yeah.
he was. So that's kind of what happened there.
I think it would fry a lot of people's brains.
It
if they
would,
did go
but
for that.
I'd like that.
I know it would be cool, like obviously to be like, but it would be
Hmm.
obviously, if there's a quick solution to it where it's not like, oh, this is the end of the universe and Doctor Strange, Stephen Strange is now Dormammu, like
Well, he's got an awful lot of work ahead of him as Strange, if we're to believe what's happening with the next phase of the Marvel Universe. He's going to be in the next Thor movie, am I right?
in that
And I think the Hulk is
Yeah.
pretty much solidly
Mark
gonna
Ruffalo is
tie
in
it.
it.
And don't forget who formed the superhero team with Doctor Strange.
Defenders.
Yep, Thor and Namor.
Yeah. Well, he's also part
Everyone
of the,
forgets them.
Do they own the rights to Namor, though? I can't remember.
No, that's
Oh, is Namor gone?
Fox. Or-
Universal,
How
I
did-
think?
Oh yeah, they got it
Fury
because
of
of
Fantastic
Fantastic Four.
Yeah.
That's an awful shame.
Yeah. Well, you know, depending on like.
But we'll have to see. I think
gonna be
Marvel are waiting to see how Aquaman kind of turns out, and then they'll decide whether kind of underwater fellows are going to work.
Aquaman's gonna be brilliant, but I
I
honestly
know.
I think it's gonna be great.
Um,
well, Injustice
Based on the
League-
previous two films, I can't say brilliant for any of them. Like Wonder Woman, I'm looking forward to it. High hopes, but
Well, we're going to be more humor in them now.
well, What was I going to say?
I'd say, sorry, we're going off the Doctor Strange thing again, but the new Wonder Woman trailer, rock on.
Yeah,
Yeah,
great.
It's a very good trailer.
But actually, onto the humor though. Doctor Strange. Some of it was fine. Some of it was a bit dreadful. I really hated Wong's last joke bit. That was
What, when you got the joke, you mean?
yeah, I hated it so much. But also,
No, Strange is constantly trying to make Wong laugh.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Finally,
I laughed at that.
I thought that was okay, which I
I
think
didn't like it.
When he's
too
listening
tough.
to Beyonce, I thought it was hilarious.
Oh, that bit was cringy. No, I hated it.
No,
Hated that bit too.
everyone in the cinema was laughing at
No,
that.
but that amount of cheese
was
was
not.
required. Well, the general humor was sarky, though. I mean, that was...
Yeah, it wasn't too
Stephen
bad.
Strange
I was worried they're
Captain
going to do
Sarcasm.
another Tony Stark character, but he wasn't that bad.
I
It was,
think the most successful sequence was definitely when he's having the out-of-body scrap while he's being...
That was good.
looked over. And that was straight
That
from
was
one of the
funny,
comic
yeah.
books. I can't remember the name of the...
reminded me of
series,
Casper.
But yeah, there's a bit of that in there, all right. But that was nice, and I thought the Ancient One's goodbye. I'm doing the inverted commas here, you can't see it. Was quite nice and poignant,
that was good, yeah.
and it did show her as flawed as anybody else, and the fact that she wasn't happy knowing that this was an end point in terms of this realm and all
I
that.
don't think it's the end for her. I can see her showing up in.
Oh,
maybe
well,
another
come
movie.
on, we know that.
But yeah, there's room for her to show up in maybe Doctor Strange 3 if it goes that far. which I think it will.
Obi-Wan, Ancient One.
But there's a couple of Easter eggs that I wanted to kind of bring to
Yes,
light.
do.
One was at the start of the movie when he's in the car and he's driving to.
Oh,
the
yes!
coffee, and they talk about
No,
the
the
patients.
roadie thing. Yeah.
But that, like, the thing, that's not roadie. It's not. It's
Yeah,
not from
that's
because
right,
That
it's
timeline
not-
doesn't match.
Well, the time doesn't make sense anyway.
No,
'cause
he-
they mentioned Stephen Strange and Civil or
remember-
Winter Soldier. It doesn't make
The
sense.
Remember
director said it wasn't, so it's...
Iron Man 2.
I think he was lying.
Remember Justin Hammer when he was making the knockoff Iron Man suits,
Mm.
and there was a video that Tony Stark pulled up in the courthouse, and it's the guy, and he's like, "Turn to the right," and he just turns to the right, and the guy's spine gets torn in half, kind of thing, in the suit.
All right, now that makes sense. I think that was intended as a Civil War reference, but
Yeah,
you've
but
made more sense of it by
I
backtracking.
after he went to.
I haven't seen that one in so long. That's the guy who's trying out...
Yeah,
it's
he
not
was
Sam
the-
Rockwell, it's someone working for Sam
Yeah.
Rockwell.
It was the guy. in
Yeah,
the suit,
okay.
And then he was like, "Turn to the right," and he goes, and you hear him go, "Rah!" And he's like, you can hear the kind of crack in there.
Do you think that film's going to be looked back on within the whole realm of these films as a better film than it was when it came out first? Because
Iron Man
now
2.
it's stuck in with bits of stuff.
I think it's just going to be a blip on the radar, but it's going to have a few sort of.
2 and 3 are a bit kind of like 1 solid, but 2 and 3 are not the best. Like, I enjoy 3 an awful lot, but it's not a good Iron Man
what
movie.
other Easter eggs are you going to mention?
This is one like for people who read the comics. Was that when Doctor Strange in the final act of the movie struck up that deal with Dormammu to take away the Zealots, which was Mads Mikkelsen and the other two. I can't remember what they were called. Did you see-
Zealot 1 and Zealot 2.
Yeah, whatever.
That's it.
Like disposable.
They
bad
were the
guys, like,
worst hang around bad guys I've seen in ages. They looked like
you kind of just knock
they
them
were
down
picked
and-
off a model catalogue.
You knock them down, you fight
Yeah,
the main
yeah.
bad guy, and then when he gets tired, the other guys just kind of show up again. But do you remember when they're getting taken away and their physical form is stripped? Like
Yes.
that is Dormammu transferring them into what they call the mindless ones, who are in the comics. They're
yes.
Dormammu's army. They're like sort of kind of thick brown creatures with like one red eye. They're really strong, but they have no sort of they don't
Free
have-
will.
They have no free will. They're controlled by Dormammu. So they actually he sends them out to do his bidding. So I think we'll see them in the Infinity War. They're incredible.
Of course, they won't need mags. They'll just have a big
No,
CGI version of them
I don't think-
stomping around.
Pity.
I think they'll take away.
But what did you think of the L'Oreal makeup when they went through the
It
transformation?
was fine. Like, it was stupid, but he can sell anything.
When you need to get you need to get the close shots of it to understand the sensibility of it. But when it was just far away, it looked like someone went mad with the airbrush.
Yeah.
But I liked the fact that there was a few little subtle things in there as well. The fact they used a what looked like a good old Catholic church to me for when they did the first ritual, when they start breaking out doorways. The fact they used a church was quite interesting. I don't know if I seem being a good old Catholic boy myself in the past. That even the floors had a certain specific kind of tiling that seemed to go into Irish Catholic church anyway. That seems that what they were modelling it on, and that was definitely a big Catholic window set knocking around the outside of that church. So there was little subtle things going on there. The fact they used the space like that. Because there was a lot of rules set down very quickly, and like you said, the mirror world, where you could be safe in doing it, and like get the big payoff where they're running around in a mirror version of the world, but they are in danger in it. I thought that was some nice stuff. It's definitely one that was worth seeing a second time, I felt. And I did get more out of it, but as I said, the screening I saw was very muddy. I don't know whether it was the projectionist or what. I didn't have that vibrancy of the colours that the IMAX had. And rare thing for me to say, possibly 3D version is definitely worth going to see. It's been the first time in a long time that a 3D movie
I'd say
you could actually say, see it 3D, you'll enjoy aspects of it in 3D.
If you want to get the full effect, I think like it's not originally intended to be an IMAX 3D movie, but if you really want to enjoy the color palette for the movie, I think it's best to see it in IMAX 3D. Like I went to see it last night, and I can still just like that sort of him going through the dimensional multiverse. Like it just blew my mind away. I was actually like my eyes were straining from seeing it, and I was like, "Oh, that's so good!" I was holding on to my girlfriend's hand. I was like, "This is actually pretty cool." Like, because I didn't go in with real high hopes. Like if I was meant to go to the premiere, and I couldn't go. Like I was stuck in work. And then again, I was like, I really got to see this. I got to, talk about it on a podcast. So I felt like I forced.
It's quite an
myself.
excuse to go and see it, though, isn't it?
Yeah, but I forced myself to go see it, and then
taking a bullet for all you guys.
But then when I did see it, I was like, I was like, I really wish I would have saw that in a full house. Like, I'm pretty sure it would have been something else.
Was it a quiet cinema you went to see it?
Well, there's about 50 people. But like when you're in that big IMAX 3D in the Cineworld on Parnell Street, like
the Savoy is always like that.
Yeah,
so I was again. It wasn't. I don't go for the audience anyway. I don't mind. I don't care who's there. But sometimes it's nice to feel the energy off people. Mind you, I've never seen so many people stay in the cinema till the very end of the credits.
It's everyone's now
of any of the movies.
Everybody's trained now,
Well, the thing is, they had the little middle moment we meet Thor and his big glass of mead, and I'm wearing a beard from some other movie. I think
that scene's actually pulled from the middle of Thor Ragnarok.
Yeah, I figured it was.
Is it?
Yep, right in the middle. So it's given away a huge plot point to the Thor
I like
movie.
the exchange.
Because Loki's in New York. What the fuck is going on there? When did that happen? When did Thor discover that Loki had taken Odin's place? Like, what the hell? Like, the Dark World was out 4 years ago now?
It's 3 years. 3 years,
yeah. And like, they're only getting to that storyline now, and I'm just like, what the hell? And now, like, they've essentially skipped over.
Is that our next Marvel movie?
Yes.
So next one is...
Or is Guardians next?
Guardians is in July, August next year. I can't remember which one's first.
Oh, if it's August,
it won't even
next.
matter because Guardians will be self-contained again.
I have a feeling it's going to make more nods though.
Guardians?
Yeah.
Oh, it's going to end. It's going to end on Earth. It's going to finish on Earth, and then.
But haven't they said the timeline of Guardians 2 is that it's set like months after Guardians 1, which means it's actually in the past for the current Marvel movies because they're all kind of concurrent with the real release schedule. So
that's why they're going to end up on Earth at the end of it because they're.
But then they're already on Earth then by logic, surely.
I like David
I
Norton is
I think in the mid credits to maybe the very very end of Guardians of the Galaxy 2, there will be at some point the mention of let's go to Earth because Thanos is going there to get the other stones.
Was someone saying the post-credit moment of Howard the Duck? Were we having this chat before where they were saying that wasn't in the cinema version of it? It was put in later on for DVD. Is that true?
No, it's not in cinema. Yeah.
It wasn't cinema.
Yeah,
okay,
definitely.
no, I went to a press screening and I just don't think they had it tacked onto it.
Yeah, they do that.
So you're saying Thor's next? Then we've got
I'm not sure.
Guardians and
I think you're right. I think it's Thor next on Guardians.
Well, Logan's first out of everything, but it's not in that.
It's not really.
It looks good though, but
it looks brilliant.
Have any of you guys read the Logan comics?
No.
There's two of them. There's two sets. There was one from the 1990s, and then there's a new one out that's only out this year, which is a kind of sequel to that, I think.
Old Man Logan?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, Old Man Logan, I think, was like 2005, 2006. I think it was Mark Miller and Steve McNiven did it. One of the best-selling comics of all time.
And it's also nuts.
Oh, it's set. Like, I like it.
I mean, I think it's got... It's like old-school mythology. There's creatures being eaten and cutting out of bellies and all sorts of stuff. And
spider cars.
Well, I don't know.
Mark Miller's a strange... What is it with these guys? These Scottish guys are all absolutely kind of nuts when it comes to their comic books, and then they go to mass at the weekend.
I'll go through the synopsis of Old Man Logan. Like, it's not going to be the same as the movie, but like they're taking the premise. Old Man Logan is set, I believe, 50 years in the future from the current X-Men timeline. In the comics,
the current X-Men timeline, meaning the one at the end of Days of Future Past.
I can't tell you. I think it's I don't know. I just
Hang
don't know.
hang on. Comics or movie?
In the comic.
Oh, no, sorry. Yeah, the movie, yes.
But
it
I
is
think in
Days of
the
Future
movie
Past,
it's going to be
yes.
from Days of Future Past, yeah. So it'll be like the
It's meant to be a year after, apparently. So in a year, Patrick Stewart went to
No,
hell.
I mean,
no,
grew
no,
hair.
I don't think that'll like.
I feel I got my hands on Barry Windsor Smith's Weapon X, which they're hinting at as being a next
Laura Kinney.
X-Men movie. Do you know it? It's how Wolverine got his adamantium,
Oh God, not again.
and it's a beautiful comic book, and it kind of was a big benchmark one at the time.
But
I can't see it being where they go with the next X-Men Weapon X one.
in Old Man Logan, Mysterio tricked Wolverine into thinking that there was a break in. You know, that's what Mysterio, the Spider-Man character, tricks Wolverine into thinking that there's a break in at the Xavier's mansion. So he takes out all the bad guys. When the dust settles, Mysterio reveals that he'd actually killed all the X-Men. So Logan vows to.
Mysterio did that?
Yeah,
He
like
was
that's a dark fucking thing to do. So Logan, in like manic depression, like decides that he's gonna try and kill himself. So he puts his head down on a railway track and then lets a train run over his head. But you can't kill him. So he just he said that he felt that for years, and he was
What, the train?
the
headache?
train. Yeah, he said it took him years to heal.
Is this in the Mark Miller one? Then?
This isn't the Mark Miller one. You should go read it, man. It's
I've been
fantastic.
reading. I did read the synopsis of it. Yeah, so he has a train headache.
So he gets run over by a train. He heals it. It shows up to like 50 years in the future. I believe 50 years anyway. He hasn't popped his claws. He's living like a solitary life. He's got a family. He's on a farm. But it turns out because of,
it's kind of it's basically a western.
yeah, there was a domino effect of what he did because he'd pretty much taken out all the X-Men. So the villains took over the United States.
And isn't Hulk in this as well? Hulk,
The Hulk is a bad guy in it.
Yeah, but that goes back to John Byrne when they had. There's a time travel story where Banner goes to the future and he fights himself, and he's the nastiest piece of work of a villain.
I think that's
ever.
when he just submits and
he's
the
killed
Hulk
all the
take over.
Avengers at this stage as well.
So all the Avengers are dead in Old Man Logan, bar Hawkeye, who is blind. But it doesn't affect him because he's heightened senses. So the Hulk gang, which are like the Hulk's kids, like they're running
That's right, yeah.
that part of the United States.
And the suggestion is they're kind of hillbilly inbred.
Yeah, exactly. They're hillbillies. They're inbred. They're all
Deliverance
banjo,
folk style.
Deliverance. So Logan's obviously having trouble paying the rent, and he has to figure out how to pay rent. Hawkeye shows up. The Hulk's like beat the shit out of him. So Hawkeye's like, I've got a job, I've got money, it'll pay your rent for whatever amount of months. And Logan's like, I don't have a choice, but I'm not fighting, I'm not popping the claws kind of thing. They go on this adventure. You kind of go through the United States and all the sections of the United States were taken over by certain villains, like the Kingpin. The Devil Dinosaur had been taken over by the Venom symbiote, and that was nuts. Like Black Bolt's in it as well. Emma Frost is in it, like from the X. She was one of the surviving X-Men.
And one of the boldest.
Yeah,
one of my favorites.
Red Skull is in the White House. He's the president. He's wearing Captain America's cowl. I don't want to go into too.
Hope you're writing this down, Richard.
I don't.
I know it all. It's
I
fine.
don't want to go into too much
I know,
detail.
We've really gone off the Doctor Strange topic.
Oh, there's not like yeah. I'm just not.
I feel like it's indicative of just how kind of the movie is fine and it's enjoyable, but also.
But there's so many other things out there.
Well, no, it's just like there's nothing that new about it. It's just Iron Man 1 template again.
Okay, well, let's
but
go around the table an honest final opinion on it. I said we all love it, but we love it for the reasons that go beyond critique. Richard, your final verdict
I
on
think
Strange.
it's perfectly enjoyable and sort of disposable, but good cast, weird score. Yeah, it was enjoyable.
I tend to agree. If it weren't for this conversation, I probably wouldn't have as much invested in it. I love Cumberbatch. That's my new nickname for you.
Did
It's
you
true.
find that he was just playing Sherlock again? I thought he was. With an American accent. Same exact characterization.
It was funny. I was thinking about that today. Now, there's a variance in it. His sarcasm is much more on the money.
The joke.
And he can be hurt. Whereas Sherlock doesn't seem to be hurt the same way. I did enjoy it. There was a sense of it kind of drifted away quickly afterwards, other than having to think about it for this. And I'd like to see it. The only big variance was the saving the world and nobody knew about it. But you did like it was setting up. But I don't know. Part of me is kind of getting tired of going to see things that are just setting up stuff all the time. I want to see some conclusions that are kind of juicy and right. There's a nice full stop.
Oh, that's the problem. Like, it feels like since maybe the first Avengers movie onwards, it's just been set up for Infinity War, which is going to be 7 years between the two of those things.
Well,
Once that's done, maybe then we'll get original storylines. But until that's come out, it's just all going to be set up really until then.
but that said, the persona of Strange is fantastic. Did a good job. I'd like to have seen a lot more in the New York setting and his new world. To be quite honest, that would have been great. And for all you people that care, go and check out 1979's first attempt at Doctor Strange, and go read Stanley talking about how brilliant it is and how it's going to be a real great marker for Marvel. But Scott, obviously you liked it a lot more and you got a lot more invested in it.
Well, yeah, I really enjoyed it. I think it was, everyone's bored of origin stories, but I think this was an origin story worth telling because I think Benedict Cumberbatch did a great story into introducing that character that people like me probably would have turned their nose up at. I'm now really.
It was needed. You could. I don't think you would have gotten away with it.
You couldn't have done what you did with Spider-Man. You couldn't have done what you did with Black Panther. You needed to have an origin story for Doctor Strange. You need to educate people on who he is.
Hey, we're not out of the woods yet. Black Panther's going to have an origin story.
Oh, it's not an origin story. It's a continuation with flashbacks. Oh yeah, Black Panther's out next year as well.
That's what I was.
Jesus.
I knew
Spider-Man's
that.
Spider-Man's out next year as well.
It's actually going to
That's
be
the next one. Spider-Man's next, I think.
Spider-Man is, I think, May.
Yeah, that's where the next one is.
Yeah, so
It's going to be an even busier year than this year, then, is it?
Hey.
That's it. We're finished now for the year, guys.
Yeah,
I don't think there's anything else now. But what are we going to talk about next?
Assassin's Creed.
Assassin's Creed, maybe. I kind of
That's
want
a no from Paul.
I'd like to talk about Passengers when that's out.
Which one's Passengers?
That's
That's
the one with
the-
Chris Pratt and Jennifer
Chris Pratt,
Lawrence.
yeah.
That looks okay.
I think
about? Is it another comic book?
No, it's a space one.
No,
Oh, yes, I know it. Yeah.
He wakes up and she wakes up too early and, I don't know.
They-
Solar flares.
they
Thing
can't get back to their cryo sleep, so they just gotta.
Arrival looks good. Passengers
Arrivals,
looks fine.
yeah. I want to
Scarlett Johansson, you were saying, yeah.
No, Jennifer Lawrence.
Yeah.
Also,
But you see, if I've been walking out of cryo and it was Scarlett Johansson, I don't think I'll be going back to cryo.
no,
But if I
definitely.
wake up and it's Jennifer Lawrence, I think I'll go back to
I
cryo.
love Jennifer
But she's
Lawrence,
quirky and
actually.
relatable. Why wouldn't you want to hang out with her for
But,
eternity?
Just on another note, the Ghost in the Shell trailer is dropping this weekend.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'll be curious to see
So I'm
that.
curious to see people's opinions on Scarlett Johansson playing an Asian character.
Here
we
can
go
I?
again.
Can we? Before we leave, then you've got to run soon.
I'm
Can
going
we
to,
talk
a
briefly
gig, yeah.
about what you guys think of the Marvel world and digital and telly and how it's tying in? Because I'd always thought initially that you've got an interesting little universe of its own with Daredevil, Jones, and Luke Cage.
Well, Defenders is out next year.
But they're still keeping it within the realm, as you say, of we know that the other world of the Avengers exists outside of it.
Originally, I think they were supposed to connect, but then that whole split happened with Perlmutter and Joss Whedon, and now it's separate divisions. But I think the popularity of Daredevil has made them question it, so they'll probably show up in Infinity War in some capacity. There's definitely talk, I think, of Luke Cage showing up, and probably Daredevil.
They'll show up as street level. Like there's going to be different levels to the heroes.
Like a really brief shot, though, is all they can really do.
Yeah, like Daredevil will be like fighting whoever's on the ground,
Yeah.
like whatever minions.
Are you guys impressed? I haven't seen any of these properly. The
What,
Netflix
no?
ones, no.
Jesus.
I've only
Watch
got-
Jessica Jones.
It's a
at
long
least.
No,
story.
you got to start from the very beginning. You got to go.
So
Daredevil.
Daredevil. and
No,
get
they're all
through-
good. They're all good. But Jessica Jones is probably the most original one. Luke Cage is fun.
Luke Cage was
Weird.
good. There was a different tone to that. And, like it's
Very 70s.
yeah. It's like
Which I like.
Oh no, like it's enjoyably 70s, but it just feels like why bother setting it in the modern era?
Does
when it's
Iron
so
Fist turn up?
70s? He's the next one out.
Oh, they're doing Iron Fist.
Iron
Yeah,
Fist,
that's
yeah,
the
he's
next
next
one.
year. Iron Fist first, then the Defenders,
Okay.
And they've teased doing the whole Heroes for Hire thing next year after
and
that.
they've already
so.
filmed the Defenders, so it's all just a matter of getting it ready for next year. April is Iron Fist as far as more.
Yes, that sounds right.
So yeah, loads happening, but I think these guys, like the fact that it's a connected universe, when Infinity War comes around, I don't think they're all going to be teaming up and going, as a battle line kind of thing. I think there will be levels to the heroes and what their contribution to the Infinity War is. I think the Defenders and the Netflix show.
What about Ghost Rider and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.?
Oh well, fucking.
I don't know. I mean, like the Civil War. When you compare the Civil War in the movie to the comic, I think the Infinity War and the comic versus the film is going to have a similar impression on us.
The Infinity Gauntlet comic though is weird. Like it's kind of one fight scene and then just lots of talking for like 5 issues.
I'll have to catch up on it so I can
That's
talk
like-
more about it
you
when we
haven't read that one?
finally
That's
get
from
to
like the
what's out.
80s or something, isn't it? That's an old one.
1990.
I know,
Isn't it?
I was,
Jim
I was
Starlin.
busy then. I didn't have any money for comics.
I was just too busy being born when that
Likewise.
came out.
Well, will we wrap it up, guys? And thank you to anyone who's listening to us. Please do listen to us some more in the future.
I
We
say
won't
they're all
ramble so
long
much,
gone
but
by now.
I think it was worth it for Scott Stanley's story alone. I'm
Yeah,
impressed.
include that in the headline. You know.
Well, no, we want a picture of that skateboard to
I'll
put
send
on
it. I'll email it to
the
you.
podcast. Thank you, guys, and thank you for listening. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Take it easy.